Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. On today's podcast, we will be discussing all the latest transfer news from around Europe, giving our best El Clasico starting 11 from the 21st century. And at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So coming up next, we'll be discussing all the latest transfer news from around Europe. So we'll start off with the big news that Ilkay Gundogan has left Man City to join Barcelona. So Gundogan leaves Man City as captain of the club, and as captain of the club, he led them to Man City's first ever treble. So Pearse, what is your reaction to Gundogan leaving Manchester City to join Barcelona?
Bit surprising that he's left to go to Barcelona because the fact is Pep was an advocate of him. He loved him so much because he was Pep Guardiola's first signing at Manchester City, and that was kind of like the start of the Pep Guardiola revolution City. And even then, like he popped up with so many vital goals, whether it be in the Premier League, cup finals, and the Champions League as well. But the fact is, you cannot, regardless how much money you offer him, like you could clearly see going to Barcelona was just down to pure history of the club. And the fact is, he's gave, was it 6 years at Manchester City? He's been loyal, he's been ever consistent, and he just went out in the perfect way to do it and winning a title at Manchester City. And he played a very key role. And like you said, he was a club captain and thoroughly deserved. And probably the perfect send-off was his last two goals in the FA Cup final with Manchester United. The first one was a screamer, second one still a goal, but no, a perfect way to go out, and a very exciting signing for Barcelona because they're getting a very talented midfielder that can play in a variety of positions, and adding much experience to that midfield that is very young, especially when them losing the likes of the experienced head of Sergio Busquets as well. So, no, a very good signing for both parties, and but I think Man City will certainly miss him big time.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised to be honest because I knew he was out of contract. So I knew it was a conversation as to whether he was going to sign or not. I always thought he would have, but he's obviously not now. He's obviously joined Barcelona, and yeah, you know, as you said, he was Pep Guardiola's first signing, and what a signing he has been. I think at the start of his Man City career, I don't think he was in the team as much. I think it was more the midfield was more Fernandinho, David Silva, and Kevin De Bruyne. So he was more of an impact player when he'd come off the bench. But in the later years of his Man City career, he's kind of, he's come on to be a crucial player for them. Obviously ended up being captain, and he's an absolute amazing player. For Man City, he's been absolutely amazing. I think he's more known for being a big game player. In the games where the pressure's high, whereas that's finals or matches to win the Premier League title. Gundogan always turned up. You were just saying there, he scored the season just there, FA Cup final. He scored in the first kick of the game, basically. To win the title, he scores. I remember a couple of seasons ago against Aston Villa, he didn't start that game, and he wasn't happy, and he came on and scored two goals for Man City to basically go on and win the title. So his impact at Man City has been absolutely amazing. For Pep Guardiola, I mean, he must be absolutely delighted with what he got because I think I'm not even sure if Man City even paid that much for him, or even if they paid that much, even if they paid anything for him at all when he signed from Borussia Dortmund. But in terms of his Man City career, absolutely amazing. And going on to Barcelona, they're getting an amazing player. I think Xavi's always been a big, massive fan of him. I think it's a good signing for Barcelona because, we talk about Barcelona in terms of they're always known for their midfield players. Busquets is now left. So you've got the up and coming Barcelona midfielders in terms of Pedri and Gavi, who are still really young. So I think Gundogan coming in, what would help them a lot, in terms of in terms of them keeping developing and stuff. Um, I, I mean, I would expect him to play quite a lot, Gundogan at Barcelona. I think Xavi will, you know, make him quite a big player in that team. But at the end of the day, it's a brilliant signing for Barcelona, and I'm sure he's going to help them so much. In terms of what they'll want to achieve, in terms of try winning the title again next season. So brilliant signing for Barcelona, and don't think Man City will be. I think they'll be pretty devastated. So with Gundogan leaving Man City, Man City had to react quickly, and they have, because they announced yesterday that they had signed midfielder Mateo Kovacic from Chelsea. So Kovacic will take the number 8 shirt, which was previously just worn by Gundogan, who's now just left. So Pearse, what is your reaction to Kovacic joining Man City?
It's a smart signing, because regardless of how bad Chelsea have been the past season, with the chaos that they've had, in his time at Chelsea, he has been very consistent. And he's been at some top clubs as well. He's part of that Real Madrid side that, well, in the beginning, the early years anyway, that he won a couple of Champions Leagues. He was in and out of the team, wasn't really a starter, but he was, whenever he came on, he did make an impact, and he played in a variety of positions. And at Chelsea, alongside Kante and Jorginho, he was outstanding for a couple of years, especially under Lampard in the beginning and Tuchel. But I do think that he's a smart signing, 20 years of age. Good age to bring him in. Chelsea needed to offload because of financial fair play. And I do think he's not the same type of player as Gundogan. I don't think he's as attacking. He's more defensive minded, Mateo Kovacic. But he's a very versatile player, and he can play in a variety of positions. And that's what Man City need. They just need different options in the middle of the park, because they've got so many attacking options. So maybe somebody that's that bit more defensive minded alongside Rodri. So no, it's a smart signing, and I do think Pep Guardiola's moved fast to bolster that midfield following the departure of Ilkay Gundogan.
Yeah, it is a smart signing. Because I think Kovacic and Gundogan are quite similar in terms of how they play. So it's basically just a swap, basically a like for like. Because Kovacic, I think he's quite underappreciated. I think he's a brilliant player. Really technically very good. Can take the ball in tight situations. Very comfortable in the ball. Just a typical Pep Guardiola kind of player. So I think in terms of like slotting in to that Man City team, I think he'll have no issues at all. He knows the league. Can play in that Man City team no problem. He's at the same quality level, so it wouldn't need. So it's not as if the level's going to be anything different to him. Okay, the Man City team might be better than the Chelsea team, but I think Kovacic will have no problem slotting into that Man City team, and I think they only signed him for 25 million from Chelsea, so it's good money. It's really good money in terms of Kovacic and the player they're getting, because as well, he's a crucial player for Croatia. He's helped them loads in terms of the recent kind of success that Croatia have had in terms of getting to finals of the World Cup and stuff. So, really good signing for Man City, and I'm sure they'll do well. And I think Chelsea are, they're getting a player leaving that's been really good to them. I think he's been brilliant for Chelsea. Helped them loads. He's won the Champions League with them. He did well with that role next to Kante in the midfield. So yeah, Chelsea I think are going to be losing a really, really good player, and Man City will be gaining a good player. So yep, really smart piece of business from Man City. So Pearse, is there any transfer news at the moment around the world, basically, that you are keeping a close eye on?
Mostly just kind of like the South Korean news and the Japanese league. But there's obviously one of the main talking points we kind of basically touched on it last week. was that Kim Ji-soo from Suriname FC, 18-year-old defenders, and he was named in the FIFA Best 11 for under 18 World Cup, and he just finalised his move to Brentford. So that's kind of the last couple of days. So that's a big signing for them. And Brentford again using markets similar to Brighton, where they're signing players that are the next big things, but not for big money. It's usually for small fees, and then they develop them and they even give them a chance in the first team. Because you look at players like Alexis McAllister and Ciso at Brighton, and then you look at Brentford, similar to David Raya and a few other players. Like they're just really well coached, really well built behind the scenes, and I think he is the future of South Korean football in terms of defence in the next couple of years. And I do think he will develop even further at Brentford, and I think it's a very smart signing. So that's the kind of like the one I was keeping tabs on. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple for me that look quite interesting. The big one for me is Declan Rice. I think that because I think I think he's leaving Man City. Sorry, he's leaving West Ham this summer. And Arsenal and Man City have been kind of the last couple of weeks are really interested in them. But it looks like now that he's going to Arsenal. Arsenal last night put in their third official bid for Declan Rice. I think the money that's put in is kind of what West Ham are looking for. And Man City, they only put one bid in, which was rejected by West Ham. But they've now decided that they're going to pull out of the race for Declan Rice. So it looks like Declan Rice is going to Arsenal unless West Ham reject that bid that Arsenal put in, which I highly doubt. So that's one definitely in the next couple of days I could see confirmed what's happened to Declan Rice, if he's going to Arsenal or if that saga is going to continue. And the other one that I'm quite interested in at the moment is Harry Kane. It looks like Bayern Munich are really interested in taking Harry Kane to Germany. Apparently there was a bid that Bayern Munich put in for Harry Kane, which was rejected. But I think personal terms have been agreed. But now I think it's just all about trying to get the fee sorted with Tottenham. It's going to be difficult because Daniel Levy is quite a tough negotiator. So I'm not sure if that will end up happening. But with Tottenham having no European football this season, in Bayern Munich, they are one of the most renowned European sides in the world who are known, who are more than likely to win the Champions League. Harry Kane might try and push that move, and it could end up happening. So the Declan Rice and Harry Kane stories are the ones that I'm keeping a close eye on, and we'll see what happens with both of them.
Yeah, I'd like to just butt in for 2 seconds, Tom. I do think the Harry Kane one to Bayern Munich, I think that is a goer, in my opinion. I think they should go because Bayern Munich last season, they lost Lewandowski and they didn't replace him, and that cost them big time in terms of the Champions League. And I do think they want to really make a mark. And you've seen them in the Bundesliga. They crawled over the line. But Dortmund had the title wrapped up, basically. And then only down to their own downfall that they failed to clinch the title. But I do think if Bayern Munich have a proper number 9, like Harry Kane is a proper number 9, elite level striker, he gets them that Bundesliga title, probably gets them the treble domestically, DFB Pokal, German Super Cup, and then he gets you to a Champions League final, Champions League semi-final. That's where Bayern Munich should aim to be. And I thought Choupo-Moting had a good season last year, but he ain't no Harry Kane, he ain't no Lewandowski level striker. And I do think, although he wants to get that Premier League goal record, Tottenham are just stagnating, if not they're just going to get worse. And obviously it's a massive rebuild this summer. And Ange Postecoglou's just went into the job, so it remains to be seen what his job will be like. And I do think if selling Harry Kane, that allows you to start afresh. And I do think that Harry Kane deserves to leave for the amount of service he's done to Tottenham. And regardless, he's not signing a new deal, so you either cash in now or he walks away for nothing next year. And the fact is, well, he's 29 years of age, turning 30 this year. He deserves a big crack at Europe, and I do think Bayern Munich is a massive step up from Tottenham, and he will win trophies, and he will potentially could win a Champions League at Bayern Munich. And touch on Declan Rice one as well. I think that's a fabulous sign if Arsenal get him. That means they really mean business, because they're potentially losing Xhaka and Partey. So that's a massive void to fill, and he is a step up on both of those players. And obviously they were just missed at the title last year to Man City, who are just dominating across Europe. But no, I think it's a fabulous signing, and it's an elite signing. With an elite signing, you need to pay an elite price, and that's what Arsenal are finally having to do.
Yep. Just lastly, in terms of Harry Kane, you were saying that it's quite obvious that Bayern Munich are looking for that Lewandowski replacement, because they probably did struggle last season without him. They won the title, but they didn't win it convincingly, and they did struggle a lot last season without him. So I think Tuchel's big game and Bayern Munich's big game is to find that striker. I think Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen have been the two names that Bayern Munich have been linked with, but I think it's Harry Kane that they're more kind of interested in. If Bayern Munich ended up getting Harry Kane, it would be a top sign for them. It really would. He would break so many records at Bayern Munich. He'd be really, really good and dangerous in the Bundesliga. But it's going to be difficult for him, I think. Tottenham and Daniel Levy are really, really hard to negotiate with. Trying to take a player who's the England captain from the Premier League to the Bundesliga, that's going to be really hard for him as well. But Harry Kane only, I think, has a year left on his contract at Tottenham, so that might make things a bit easier. But we'll see what happens with that one. That's I think this summer that one's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on. Just also a little bit of sad news that came out this week that the former Scotland manager Craig Brown sadly died. Craig Brown is known for being the last Scotland football manager to take the country to the World Cup finals. So, Pearse, just what your thoughts on the sad news?
Yeah, tragic news. The last I remember seeing him was as an Aberdeen manager. But obviously in Scotland, he's talked about because of how successful he was with the national team. And you've seen that, like Scotland, how difficult it was to qualify for major tournaments since. Because we've had some great managers like the late great Sir Walter Smith, and then you've had Alex Leach, Craig Levine, Gordon Strachan, and now Steve Clarke, who's probably the closest to doing what Brown done. So no, a sad loss to Scottish football because he was an absolute great, and I didn't even realise it was 15 years they had in charge of the national team, which is some achievement because not many managers get that long, especially on a national team post. But the fact is he got us to 3 major tournaments in a row, and obviously got the famous one down at Wembley, and it was at Euro '96. And obviously we're only an own goal for beating Brazil, for getting a point against Brazil in the World Cup in '98. So no, sad news, and nothing but total respect for the man, and sad to see him go, and his legacy will live on forever.
Yeah, no, it was sad news to hear. He's got a great, his time at Scotland as a manager of the national team was brilliant. Obviously, as we just said, he's the last manager to lead Scotland to a World Cup finals, which is, quite an achievement. He was, although Scotland didn't get through this tie, Scotland did go to Wembley and beat England 1-0. He was known for that as well. But a great kind of Scottish football legend. I don't think his football and playing career is known, but his managerial career definitely was. I read this week that he'd also came through the Scotland schoolboy team with Sir Alex Ferguson. So they two have kind of been brought up at the same time. But a total legend and in Scottish football. And he's going to be sorely missed. And yeah, so sad news. So coming up next, we will be giving our best El Clasico starting 11 from the 21st century. So before the podcast today, me and Pearse thought to ourselves about who we think our best El Clasico starting 11s are from the 21st century. So we're now going to reveal this on the podcast. So Pearse, we'll start with you. Who makes your best El Clasico starting 11?
Well, I've went with a 4-3-3, but with a two centre mids and a DM. And obviously we've done the thing where it's like you cannot have more than 7 players from the one side. So that way it's like a kind of even split, and you're not being biased to one side or just having a full Barcelona or a full Real Madrid side. And obviously I was looking for some of the names that played in this era, and some of the players that are left out are absolutely ridiculous from both sides. So for me, the nailed on starters for me in this side were the two centre backs, right back, and the two wingers. The rest were up for debate. So I'll name the starters that I had to just have to put in. So my two centre backs were Sergio Ramos and Carlos Puyol. My right back was Dani Alves, just a shoe-in, and my two wingers were Lionel Messi on the right and Cristiano Ronaldo on the left. That was my shoe-ins. Goalkeeper was a toss of a coin, really. So I came up with 7 names: Diego Lopez, Marc-Andre ter Stegen, Claudio Bravo, Victor Valdez, Iker Casillas, Thibaut Courtois, and Keylor Navas. I've went with Iker Casillas. I just think he's a legend of the game. Some of the saves he made in that side for Spain and for Real Madrid. And I'll always remember his 18-year-old performance in Glasgow in 2002. It was outstanding. But I just felt as if for me it was between him and ter Stegen. I think ter Stegen's been ever present in that Barcelona team, and he's been very consistent. But I've just edged towards Casillas, and I had to give an honourable mention to Keylor Navas, who for me is one of the most underrated keepers in the modern era. At left back was an even harder choice. The three I've narrowed it down to was Marcelo, Jordi Alba, and Roberto Carlos. And I've just went with Marcelo because I've seen him play more. I just think he offers more going forward than Jordi Alba. Jordi Alba's better defensively. Roberto Carlos, I just didn't see enough of. I was too young to witness him live. We've seen a handful of his games, and it was towards the back end of his career. And I just felt some of the performances I've seen Marcelo going forward was ridiculous, especially combining down at left wing with Ronaldo. It was a joy to watch. In the middle of the park, I've went for CDM. Again, this is so tough to choose, but I've just went with Sergio Busquets. So the 5 that I narrowed it down to was Busquets, Casemiro, Mascherano, Makelele, and Xabi Alonso. So to choose any of those could have started, but I've went with Busquets because I just felt as if he's the most technically gifted out of all of them, and he was just a joy to watch when he played. And the other two centre mids I've went with are Andres Iniesta and Luka Modric. I just think both of them are quite similar, but they're just so attacking. Modric had to be in there for his longevity. I know I've left out players like Zidane, Xavi, Beckham, Kaká, Edgar Davids. The list goes on. Ivan Rakitic, Fabregas, but they were the 3 for me. So Iniesta, Modric, and Busquets. And up front, I've went to Karim Benzema. I just felt his longevity. He was so underappreciated for years. He was just so technically gifted, and he works so well in any front line. And to get back into the French squad at like 34 years of age, and he's also a Ballon d'Or winner as well. So that's why I've went with him. But missed out was like players like Neymar, Huntelaar, Higuain, Morientes, Adebayor, Henry, Larson, Eto'o, R9, Van Nistelrooy, Michael Owen, Kluivert, Rivaldo, Bale, Chicharito, David Villa, Ibrahimovic, and Luis Suarez. Ridiculous to choose from, and obviously Raul as well. So I've went with Benzema, but it could have been anyone. it was so difficult to choose from.
Well, that was a brilliant team, Pearse. You know, such a difficult starting 11 to choose. To be fair, with my starting 11, so I've gone a 4-3-3 as well. Two more attacking midfielders and one more defensive midfielder. So mine's just pretty similar to yours. So starting off with the goalkeeper, I was, to be fair, I was kind of going between two keepers, which was Thibaut Courtois or Iker Casillas. But in the end, I went with your choice, which was Iker Casillas. You know, an absolute total Real Madrid legend. You know, countless trophies he won. You know, the game that you mentioned there when he was 18 at Hampden Park. You know, I didn't watch that game, but I do know the stories about it. So I went with Iker Casillas. Also his national team career as well. You know, he won the World Cup with Spain as well. So yeah, Iker Casillas went in there. For my back four, it's a mix. So my two centre backs the same as yours, Carlos Puyol, Sergio Ramos. You know, I mean, there's kind of you could have went for PK, Pepe, you know, these type of players. But I just think with Puyol and Ramos, you know, they're just standouts. You know, Carlos Puyol for his leadership, you know, his longevity as well. You know, he was played different generations in that Barcelona team. You know, he was a brilliant player. And Sergio Ramos, he was actually more, he had leadership, but I think people don't talk about enough about how many goals he actually scored. You know, he was known for a lot of goals he scored for Real Madrid. You know, he scored in the final of Champions League against Atletico Madrid. You know, he was quite a um, not dirty player, but he did kind of have a lot of red cards in his career. But you know, he made it up for the countless memories that he gave Real Madrid and his leadership and his longevity as well. So definitely Puyol and Ramos and that's my two centre backs. My full backs are different tiers. One of them's not. So at right back, I have gone Dani Alves. You know, Dani Alves. I think for me, Dani Alves was, you know, his link up with Lionel Messi on the right was just one of the best. You know, they two just had such a good understanding of each other. You know, he was such a good, he was such a good athlete as well. You know, so athletic, he could get up and down that pitch. You know, he was a brilliant player. And my left back's different. So you went with Marcelo, but I changed it. I actually did go for Marcelo at the start, but then I decided that I'm going to change it. And I went with Roberto Carlos. Now I didn't watch Roberto Carlos as much. You know, I didn't really get to see him live. But the reason I went for Roberto Carlos is because I just find the influence he had on other left backs, on all full backs in the world. You know, he kind of made that role of the modern left back now of what it is. You know, he was more. I think Roberto Carlos was how he could both defend and attack. You know, fullback's different so much now. Nowadays, you know, he's him and Cafu in the Brazil team. People always talk about how they two are the best fullbacks of all time in the game, which is such a good argument to make. And I just think Roberto Carlos as well. Although Marcel was amazing, I just think Roberto Carlos in terms of like the technique he had. You know, everyone remembers his famous goal, where the ball swerved out and swerved back into the goal. You know, his countless free kicks he scored as well. So I've went Roberto Carlos, but it was a toss up between him and Marcelo. So going on to my midfield, and my DM is the same as yours. So Sergio Busquets, just the influence he had. You know, you know, there's so many players now that try and copy what Busquets did in that middle of the pitch. You know, he wasn't really seen in the game, but you know, he was so intelligent and you know, just a brilliant player. And my midfield, two other midfielders are the same as yours. So I've went with Iniesta and Luka Modric. I was so like I kept going back and forth between Modric and Xavi, and like I hate having to leave Xavi out, but I just went with Luka Modric. Um, you know what he's won his career. You know the fact that he's 38 now, and he's still going at the top level. He's still one of the best midfielders in the world at his age. I just think it's amazing. And Iniesta, he's just, for me, he was one of my favourite players to ever watch. He was just a magician on the ball. The one thing I always think about Iniesta was when he had the ball, it's kind of like glue. Like, it never left him. Like, I don't remember everyone watching him, and he took a bad touch and he was running, trying to get back. Always just stuck to him. He was so good at controlling the ball, and scored a famous goal in the World Cup final to win Spain the World Cup. So yeah, Iniesta goes in that team for me. And then my front three. So my front three is different. So on the right is Messi. I don't think there's too many arguments as to you can't take Messi out of that team. Messi's just one of the best players of all time. Up front on his own, Cristiano Ronaldo. He did start off on the left at the start of his career, but he did go into the middle and played striker at the end of his Real Madrid career. So, I'm allowed that, so I can put Ronaldo in there. Him and Messi just had to go in that team. I don't think you could leave them out. Especially if it's a 21st century team. They two were the two best players of all time. And my last player who's playing on the left is Ronaldinho. The reason I went for, there's so many other players. You said Benzema, could easily put Benzema in that team, and Zidane as well. He could have it in midfield or even in the attacking roles. But the reason I went for Ronaldinho, it's just, it's more personal for me because, like, when I was young, I used to always try and kind of like copy Ronaldinho, and I always loved the skills he had. He was just such a good player to watch in terms of all the skills. People used to always try and copy him. He was just such a kind of unique kind of player. Lots of people's idols. And yeah, Ronaldinho for me. So that's my El Clasico start 11. But everyone's is going to be different. It's such a hard topic to talk about. There's so many players that could get in that team, and it's hard to leave them all out because they're all like all the players that you've left out. You can mention they're just all amazing. So yeah, such a hard one, but that's ours. That's our El Clasico start 11s.
Yeah.
So for the final part of the show, Pearse will now give his Asian football roundup.
Yeah, so the European football finished, but that is not the case for the Korean and Japanese leagues. Still in full swing. And on Saturday, the 24th of June, we had Suwon Samsung Blue Wings 0, FC Seoul 1, Jeju United 1, Daeja Hana Citizen 1, Gwangju FC 2, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors 0, which I done a match reports on the website. Ulsan Hyundai 3, Daegu FC 1, and then to round it off on Sunday, the 25th of June, Incheon United 0, Pohang Steelers 1, Suwon FC 1, Gangwon FC 1. So that's leaving the table looking like this. So at the top of the table, we've got Ulsan Hyundai in 47 points after 19 matches. And in second place, we've got Pohang Steelers in 34 and FC Seoul in 32 points. So you see, Ulsan Hyundai just run away with the league this season. Looks set to win back-to-back titles. And down at the bottom table, it's 12th place, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, 19 games, 9 points. And 11th is Gangwon FC on 13 and Suwon FC on 19 points from 19 games. So as you see, Gangwon FC and Suwon Samsung Blue Wings are cut adrift a little bit, and you can kind of see them, they're destined to go down the pedium unless they get their act together sooner rather than later. So in terms of Korean news, so it's official, it's confirmed. They touched on it a wee bit earlier. Kim Ji-soo has signed on a permanent deal. The 18-year-old centre-back joins a 4-year contract for Brighton FC. Deal also includes an option of a further year. Yeah, so that's that. And obviously we're talking about Gangwon FC down the bottom of the table. Well, Yan Hyung-jun is livid after Gangwon FC rejected Celtic's offer. Due to the method of this transfer fee payment, Celtic offered to pay in 2 instalments. Gangwon said they'd only accept if they could keep him until January, so that's when the Korean League season finishes. but Celtic didn't budge. Celtic are also beginning to look at alternative signings, with Ji Sung and Jong Ho Yun from Gwangju FC now on their radar. Watch the space as Celtic may compromise with Gangwon FC in order to sign their first choice. And the man in question has recently spoke to Sports Tucson, and as I quote him, "I want to go to Celtic. I want to go in the summer, not winter. I hope they allow it as promised." So that's words from the man himself. And a little bit of Korean League 2 news. Ansang Greeners have sacked manager Lim Jong-hyun, who is under investigation for corruption. So now on to the Japanese League. So on Saturday, 24th of June, we nearly had a full card. So we'd kicked off with Hokkaido Consoldo Sapporo 1, Cerezo Osaka 4, FC Tokyo 2, Nagoya Grampus 0, Gambo Osaka 2, Kashima Antlers 1, Kashio Reysol 0, Alberts Niigata 0, Kyoto Sanga 2, Yokohama SC 1, Sanfrecce Hiroshima 0, Yokohama F Mariners 1. And the surprise scoreline was Shonan Bellmare 0, Sagan Tosu 6, Urai Diamonds 1, Kawasaki Frontale 1. And the last fixture was played on Sunday, 25th of June, and it was Avispa Fukuoka 0, Vissel Kobe 3. So that's leaving the table looking like this. So at the top of the table, we've got Yokohama F Mariners, 18 games played, 39 points. We've got Vissel Kobe in second on 36 points, only 17 games played. And we've got third place, Nagoya Grampus, on 35 points, 18 games played. So it's very tight at the top of the table. So if Vissel Kobe win their game in hand, there'll be 11 points at Yokohama F Mariners, with Nagoya Grampus only 4 points behind the pair of them. So at the bottom of the table, we've got 18th place, Shonan Bellmare, 17 games played, 12 points. And then Yokohama FC and Kawashiwa Reysol, both 18 games played and 13 points. So it's very tight at the bottom and very tight at the top. And that's all your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye-bye.